No. Oh. You ever had bacon? Not you vegans or vegetarians. I'm talking about you carnivores. Have you ever had it? Bacon. You got bacon that's so good, your skin starts to itch and you start feeling your moves. You want to save the world? One piece of bacon at a time. It's candy bacon. It's sugary bacon. It's got molasses on it. You could just eat it straight off the pan. It's been cooked in your oven by the beloved. It's the best thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you have any idea? Because that's what's important to me right now, not anything else. I have been informed that other things are more important, but I disagree. Because I have theology, a kind of cosmic philosophy. And it has to do with bacon. See, in ancient Gnosticism, there were these things called the archons. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which date back to around, 400 AD, they were found in Nag Hammadi, I believe, which is a place in Israel, somewhere around there, Dead Sea Scrolls. They had the archons. And the head archon, which was also called a demiurge. And they built this world reality, so to speak, but it was very fallen. Delusional. It was a sham upon the human mind. And these archons were malevolent, ultimately. Bad dudes. Now, what's to say that that was really just fiction? You know. You know what I'm talking about? Living in a fallen world where there's so much deception and inversion and the crippling of the truth, where everything is upside down and inside out. What's to say? There's a campaign against bacon. Now that could be an argument against the archons. Because in the world that I would create, everybody loves bacon. There's no such thing as a vegetarian or a vegan. That's just a crime against humanity. But they would counter that it's crime against swine. Crime against swine. But what I want to know, what I really want to know is, what is this campaign against meat? As if we were suddenly more spiritual and ethical beings to not eat cows, or swine, or poultry. And that the best people just eat plants. Well, why do you prefer plants? Do you think that plants feel less than animals? Well, you're a speciesist. Why do you prefer flora over fauna? Think that's been inverted? You think that's the presence of the archons? You think that's fucking inside out Gnosticism? We live in an upside down world. Now, I won't say necessarily that everybody should love bacon. But don't hate on me if I love bacon. Candied bacon. Don't hate on me. And don't think that just because I love bacon and you don't like bacon, that everything is just relative. I talked about that already last night. Some things are superior to others, right? You believe your vegetarianism and your veganism is superior. Otherwise, you wouldn't do that. So, who's got the superior perspective? Me, the lover of bacon, or you, the hater of bacon, the bacon hater? Well, one thing we know is that superiority and inferiority exist. And that is the truth. Because we all participate in that. That's another thing I talked about last night. So in addition to this inquiry regarding bacon and my moobs and this kind of beautiful, ecstatic, itchy scratchiness I got going on right now, as I titillate my moobs, as I middlate my tubes, is that what would a world look like that wasn't upside down and inverted? Like, if lawyers didn't corrupt justice, and doctors didn't corrupt health, and universities didn't corrupt truth, and there wasn't all that inversion, where the very institutions that we think would advance certain agendas, in fact, invert those agendas, where we have kind of systemic malevolence that we take to be the nature of reality. What would happen if we weren't caught in that collective mirage? What would it be? Have you ever wondered that? Do you feel that we will always be in a fallen state, and that's inevitable? Because one thing we take for granted is this kind of mass confusion where everybody's got different perspectives, and we regard that as problematic. I don't think it needs to be problematic. I think it can be gorgeous because, when we look at the diversity of the animal kingdom or the diversity of the plant kingdom, to get back to the vegetarian, vegan, carnivore themes, the more diversity, the better, and we actually are truly stunned when a species goes extinct. Well, some of us are. And we have endangered species list and protection acts and all that. In the world of the human being, in the realm of the mind, why wouldn't we regard all these beliefs as various species? I do. I call them species of psyche. And that when you eliminate them, it's like psychicide. But it is interesting, because a lot of these species of psyche are kind of warped. You know what I mean? It's not like you want them all. There's some that are not only clearly superior, but some that actually negate the existence of others. Right? So if you've got an individual who has a whole mental ecosystem about rape or serial murder, that ecosystem's got to go. Right? We lock that person up. So there isn't any kind of relativism or subjectivity there. Well, subjectivism, so to speak. So imagine this world in where we really could isolate the genuinely evil species of psyche. Now that gets really tricky, doesn't it? Because you might actually regard me as evil for loving bacon and fondling my moves. You may think that I don't care for animals and want to see them suffer, and I privilege my own pleasure at eating their flesh over their own happiness, and that makes me evil. You might think that because I'm grabbing my moobs, that I'm part of the LGBTQ agenda and I'm really a transsexual. And you might think that I'm subverting your morality or your religion if you happen to be a fundamentalist Christian or Muslim or whatever. So who wins there? Because if there is a genuine psychopathy in the world, if there is genuine evil in the world, if it is kind of like a virus of the soul, to use the whole COVID-19 theme, how do we isolate it? There's just this plethora of confusion that confounds the collective mind across the planet. How do we get clarity to know what species of psyche should remain? You know, I have my thoughts, and I've done a lot of investigation and research inside myself and in culture at large. And I could probably convince maybe 10 people before I die. Not a big deal, to be honest with you. Maybe 100 people, but 7.8 billion or 3 billion or however billion people there are. And then, of course, it's like sand on a beach that's just washed away with the tide. Sandcastle or castles in the air. Great, I convinced 100 people that this whole assortment of psyche, known as species of psyche, well, that's good. And this whole assortment of species of psyche is evil. And good, we've solved it. Well, those 100 people, they're not going to really do much about these malevolent species of psyche. They're just going to be like, okay, well, all right. Because right when we encroach upon them, they move, they run away, they get protection, whatever they do. Some of them we may be able to eliminate. But for them, these species of psyche that I regard as malevolent, my 100 friends regard as malevolent, they don't regard themselves as malevolent. Or maybe even some of them do, which compounds the difficulty. Again, these are sandcastles on the beach. There's an incoming tide. It's going to wipe it away. Does it really matter? And then we get down to really deep questions here. Really profound psycho-spiritual issues, right? Which is, does anything that you or I really do matter? Or do really matter? That's very interesting, because what I've come to notice is that if I compare any of my individual acts against society at large, or the species at large, or history, or the universe, the planet, anything, if I have a frame of comparison that's large enough and value my own act vis-a-vis that frame of comparison, I can pretty much annihilate the significance of anything I do or feel. So where does that leave me? I'll tell you where it leads me. It leads me down a rabbit hole of nihilism if I'm not careful. If I don't objectify the rabbit hole of nihilism before I go down there. For example, have you ever thought really constructively about meaninglessness? Have you really got in there and excavated meaninglessness? It's really profound if you do that. Let me tell you why. Because if you feel meaninglessness, what you're really feeling is this sense of despair, right? You're looking out and there's no meaning. But what is meaning? Have you ever really looked at it? What is meaning? Now, a lot of people are going to give you different answers, or maybe a few people who've really thought about it. What I would say is ultimately meaning is when we're awake as source. That's meaning, capital M, meaning. And when we are awake as source, we experience that meaning as our own identity. And then everything that flows out of us through words, activity, feelings, expressions, is drenched as that capital M meaning. And therefore, this construct that we use to assess the value of things or the meaning of things isn't out there. It's not something out there that we use to compare ourselves against. So I don't have meaning vis-a-vis society. I don't have meaning vis-a-vis the planet. I don't have meaning vis-a-vis the solar system. I don't have meaning vis-a-vis the impenetrable vastness of cosmic space. I don't have meaning versus those things. I am meaning. And then that flows out of me. I am drenching the environment with meaning. But what I'm really doing is drenching the environment as source, because I am awake. So if you want to know what reality would be like without all this confusion, where all these species of psyche are trying to eliminate, obliterate, and annihilate these species of psyche, and it's just total fucking pandemonium, then what you gotta do is wake up. You've actually got to wake up. What does that mean? It ultimately means realizing your identity as source, and you can do that by hanging out in the simple feeling of being right now. And realize that you're not separate from that simple feeling of being. You are that simple feeling of being. You are that radiance and that luminosity and that bacon moves on your chest that itch, scratch. You are that. I am that. I am the bacon, baby. I'm the vegetarian and I am the vegan. I'm especially the bacon. I'm okay with the vegans and vegetarians. I think you're a little crazy. I used to be one, not a vegan, a vegetarian. I got so hungry for that fish in the forest in Bosnia. I had to eat it. Couldn't just survive on bagels and scrambled eggs, bitch. Couldn't. Didn't work for me. If you see what I mean. Today, recently, lately, last several weeks, going forward in the future, how are you going to do? What's your prayer going to be? I'm going to tell you what your best prayer is going to be. It's not the prayer that's praying to something out there, because I do think prayer is very important. It's the prayer that comes as the natural effulgence of yourself as source, which is to say everything is a prayer in a way. Everything you're doing is an expression of yourself as source, not it's some philosophy or theology or some advanced cognitive spirituality, as a reality. So if you're abiding as the simple feeling of being and you're realizing your identity as source, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, then you pray in that. You can pray outward. You can ask for the benison of infinite sentience, as I often do. The benison of infinite intelligence, as I often do. The benison of infinite wisdom, as I often do. The benison of infinite knowledge, as I often do. But you do it as source, as I often do. Because right now, the illusion that anything outside of you can save you is really undergoing a lot of pressure. I mean, sure, things can intervene and save you temporarily. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, nothing's going to save you for the great death. There's nothing that's going to save you from that. But when you are awake as source, you don't need to be saved from death. And that's the greatest prayer you could ever have. To not need to be saved from death.